And Suhaib ar-Roomi, of course, ar-Roomi means what? The Roman. Was Suhaib a Roman? No, Suhaib was not a Roman. Suhaib was actually an Arab. He was actually from Iraq. Suhaib was an Iraqi. But he was captured by a Byzantine party when he was a young boy. And so he was captured as a young slave, sent to Rome. He grew up in Rome, and he forgot Arabic completely, and he spoke fluent Latin. He became a slave in Rome, and he remembered his roots. He knew he was Arab. And so eventually he fled away, and he sold himself. I mean, you were a slave, you needed to be a slave back then apparently. So he sold himself to some Arabs, or he got into some Arabs. Eventually he was sold to Abdullah ibn Jud'an in Mecca. Abdullah ibn Jud'an in Mecca. And Ibn Jud'an was one of the more merciful of the slave owners. And so the torture of Suhaib was not as bad, but nonetheless the others tortured him. Ibn Jud'an did not torture him himself. Abu Jahl and others tortured him. But Ibn Jud'an overall dealt with him in a good manner. And he actually made him a business manager, because Ibn Jud'an was a wealthy businessman. So because Suhaib was so intelligent, he knew how to read and write and everything, so he became a business manager, he became wealthy. When Ibn Jud'an died, he became a free man, because he wrote in his will that Suhaib is going to be free after I die. So he became a mawla. And so when Ibn Jud'an died, Suhaib decided to immigrate to Medina. And when he was immigrating to Medina, the Quraysh heard about this. And so they stopped him on the outskirts. And they approached him as a caravan. And Suhaib turned around and he took out his bow and arrow. And he said, you know I am the best sharpshooter, marksmith amongst you. And I promise that none of you will be able to touch me until every arrow in my quiver has touched human flesh. And I promise that none of you will be able to touch me until my sword is bent and broken upon your bones and blood. Go ahead, challenge. 10 of them versus 1 of you. But they didn't love their lives they didn't love Suhaib's life that much as their own. And so they just surrounded him, kept on threatening him, until finally they said, Suhaib, you came to us penniless. You came to us without any money, without anything. And now you're leaving us as a rich man, taking our wealth. Give us back all of this money, and then we'll let you go. And this was, subhanAllah, the way of, you still hear it now, that these illegal immigrants come and take over our jobs, and as if it belongs to them, as if they would do the jobs that the others are doing. So I mean, this type of mentality, don't think it's new. Wallahi, when you study human history and anthropology and psychology, been there, done that. Nature of man doesn't change. The issues might have different fancier names. It's still basic racism and whatnot. So they're attributing all of Suhaib's success to themselves. This is my money, not your money. This is our money. So Suhaib said, is that what you want from me? You want all of my wealth? They said, yes, even the horse that you're riding. SubhanAllah, you can't just leave a man in the desert without a camel. Even the camel that you're riding. So there was no alternative. So Suhaib said, okay, here's the camel, here's my wealth, and the rest of my wealth is buried in such and such a place. Because again, there's no bank accounts, you're going to bury it somewhere. Go there and you shall find the wealth. And so Suhaib ar-Roomi became the only Sahabi that we know of who performed the hijrah on foot, walking in the desert without any, not just the clothes on his back, that's all he owned. After being the richest mawla, there was no mawla, there was no freed slave richer than Suhaib, because he was the business master of Ibn Jud'an. He became the richest mawla. He gave every penny of it in order to free himself and go to Medina. And it is said, the books of Sirah say that he was literally crawling on all fours, because he doesn't have food and drink except what he could find in the desert. He was literally crawling on all fours by the time he got to Quba. And that's where he met the Prophet. This is in Quba, right after the Hijrah. The Prophet stayed there for a few days, as you know. So he crawled on all fours to Quba, his complete, emaciated, dehydrated, about to collapse and die, dusty, disheveled. And the Prophet himself wiped the dust off of him and gave him food and drink. And he smiled and he said to Suhaib, رَبِحَ التِّجَارَةُ يَا Suhaib, رَبِحَ التِّجَارَةُ, that your business transaction has been the most successful. And Suhaib said, no one could have told you about this, Ya Rasulullah, except Jibreel. Nobody knows except Jibreel. And Allah revealed in the Quran, Surah Al-Baqarah, Surah Al-Baqarah is the first revelation in Medina. Allah revealed a beautiful verse. That is because of Suhaib ar-Roomi. It's attached to Suhaib ar-Roomi. And that is, وَمِنَ النَّاسِ مَنْ يَشْرِي نَفْسَهُ ibtigha'a mardatillah. There are those who sell everything they have in themselves in order to benefit, in order to get the rewards of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And all of this, of course, are some of the stories of the early tortures.